A well-maintained and cared-for church will not only attract a congregation, but also the wider community. Some churches attract visitors from around the world and are a tourist destination in their own right. These churches are treasure troves full of monuments, stained glass, sculptures and carvings that are all part of our history and culture. All were built for worship, yet all are different. Each church has its own story to tell. In this video, we hear some of those stories and also discover how you can find your church's story and tell it to the wider community. Starting our journey in Rhea, as Raymond Whitaker tells us the story of St Mary's Church.
It is a very special and unique church, designed and built in 1842 by a lady, Sarah Losh. She built it in memory of her sister who had died, and it is completely unique. It's just her imagination going wild, really. It's fascinating because there are no Christian symbols that you'd recognise in our church, but it's full of symbolism, but it's Sarah's own ideas. She uses ancient symbols, pagan symbols even, such as the pine cone. The pine cone is Sarah's symbol of afterlife. Because if you look at a pine cone, you think it's dead, but of course it isn't. In it is the seed of new life. And so she uses that as her symbol of resurrection instead of the cross. As I say, very personal, very unique. If we look at the windows, for example, you might expect to see scenes of the crucifixion or of the saints or whatever, and none of those here. They're a crazy mosaic, really, of colours and shapes. But if you look closer, you'll see that they actually are broken pieces of glass. They've had a former use. They're from other older windows. And what Sarah's done here is put them together. She was ahead of her time. She reused materials, but the significance of that is that, again, pieces that were lost and for waste have been given new life. It's her symbol of the resurrection. Here are our glorious coloured windows, symbol of resurrection.
But the story hasn't always looked so rosy for St Mary's.
Back in 2010, the church was in a bit of a state, really, because the roof needed repairing, massive stone slates on the roof there, and water was getting in. We had polythene over the pews and so on. And so we launched an appeal, and very fortunately it coincided with Songs of Praise being broadcast from here. And as part of that, Eric Robson did a little piece as an appeal. And I think somebody must have been looking over us because the money just started coming in. Because of course, Songs of Praise broadcast around the world, and we started getting checks from all over the place, you know. And from that, we were able to repair the roof and do the painting and put in heating as well. But more than that, what it prompted us to do was establish the Friends of St Mary's, because what we realised was, yes, there was the small group of us that meets here every Sunday, but there is a group beyond that that we can talk to, and they're fascinated by our church. And the Friends became that vehicle in which to communicate with them and let them know what's going on. Well, of course, from a practical point of view, it's enabled us to keep the church looking as pristine as it does today. But beyond that, it means that it's a very active church. I mean, we have guided tours that look round, probably up to about 20 a year, from all over the country. There may be women's institutes and some commercial tours as well, and they look round, and of course they pay for that privilege, and therefore that helps us again to maintain the church.
And the story of St Mary's is told to visitors from far and wide.
Well, welcome to St Mary's Church. I mean, the first thing you'd say is that this is not like any Victorian church you've ever seen before. It's completely unique. And as I said, one of the most unusual things are the arrows on the door of the church, put there in memory of Sarah's friend. And one further feature is if you just open it slightly and then drop that there, you get ventilation as well. And of course you can see the arrow from the inside. More than that, she's also using arrows to remind us, as we're approaching the church, to remind us, well, death is inevitable. It's her symbol there of death, just to remind us of that, because as soon as you open the doors and you go into the church, it's all about new life. But again, a unique feature from St Mary's Church. Yes, if you'd like to come up to the semicircular apse.
There are an abundance of stories and features at St Mary's to delight visitors. But Raymond believes that every church has its own story to tell.
Yeah, every time I come in, I always check the visitor book actually, because it's extraordinary to find where people are coming from all over the world. I appreciate that at St Mary's we are blessed because we have a special church and it's got its own special stories to tell. But you know, every church has a story to tell. You just need to find that and tell that story and tell it in a very easy way that people can appreciate. People are fascinated by the history of places, so find your own story and tell it well.
And the St Mary's experience doesn't end in the church. They also have a small museum heritage centre dedicated to the church's founder.
When we'd formed the Friends and we'd raised money, we thought we need a project. We wanted to tell the story of Sarah, which you couldn't do in the church. You'd have spoilt it. But there was the Chapel of Rest, ideal, small building, ideal for restoring it and telling the story of Sarah there. And that's what the Friends have achieved. And I think, I think any visitors really appreciate it. I would not call myself an evangelist by any means, but it's funny, isn't it, when you're talking to people about a church and about its building and the meanings behind it, you are telling them about the resurrection, you know, and so that obviously comes into it. But it is, as I say, it's an exciting place to be associated with, and I'm privileged.
So from the smallest rural churches in the county to the largest historic priories, it's the history and the visitor experience that helps attract people through the doors, as Nick Devenish from Cartmel Priory explains.
Cartmel Priory was founded in 1188 by William Marshall, the greatest knight of England who comes from obscurity to actually be Prince Regent, Henry III, who's only 8 or 9 on the throne, and Marshall takes the lead in the country. The priory then suffers in 1537 the Reformation and the dissolution of the monasteries. Marshall brought his own Augustinian canons or monks here. But because of his role in the nation, particularly leading the Battle of Lincoln in 1217, Henry's army leaves the church intact out of some sort of recognition for what Marshall did for us as a country. So we're so blessed that we have the church in its entirety. People can come still and visit as it was imagined for over 800 years ago. We do act as a parish church, and it always has done. There are parish church responsibilities that I have, but also the ministry is much wider and much bigger than that too. We're a huge visitor attraction, not only for the priory but also our village. We have a very unique village. And so our ministries are not only working with the community, but we're also seeing to see how we can work with those who visit from this country and also from all around the world.
Reordering has also helped to make better use of their space.
Well, one of the things we've recently done is actually just looked at the building itself. A lot of the space was locked down by Victorian pews and an unworkable large font. And so we sort of dreamed dreams, and we've now removed the pews to the nave of the building and resited the font, which has opened up the space that we're standing in, which really takes it back to what it was designed for. This was the community space. This is the place where people came to talk. Maybe business was transacted here. And so we're reimagining what the Priory might be doing for our time as it seeks to be a place for more and more people to visit. But actually it's important for me that they connect and they feel a sense of belonging here, even if they may live the other side of the world.
And to help visitors connect, the Cartmel team have embraced plenty of initiatives, which even include virtual reality.
The initiatives are having the desired impact that we're looking for. We want more people to be part of worship, but also to be connected to the Priory. And it is bringing more people in from our website to social media, to the initiatives like the virtual reality experience. And I want to get to a point in time where we can sort of say 40 to 50 minutes we have this experience that you can come and just spend time in the Priory, just discovering its history and its architecture, but also as well why it's here. That's obviously the key of what we're here for, is actually using, when visiting, is just using any means that we have possible for them to give some thought to why this was built. What's it here for? Well, it's here for the glory of God.
Joe Scott is a heritage interpretation planner and helps churches unlock their narrative. And through her workshops, churches can discover simple ways to engage with the community.
I think it can sometimes be a challenge, but obviously every church has a story to tell. Sometimes you have to dig a bit deeper to find it, but there's no question that every church has a story. And I think always the most important thing is to look at the stories of people, because the church is the centre of the community. It's where important events happen, whether they're celebrations of marriage or remembering someone who's died. They're at the centre of all our communities. Even if we have no faith, they're still places that we go to. Obviously, it's very important that people understand the stories of their own special places. So by telling the stories, if you get more people locally involved and to care about the place, you're more likely to get them to support it and ensure its long-term sustainability. And obviously getting visitors and other types of users into the building is really important as well. So that might be about holding events or activities to get new and different people in, beyond worship and beyond the congregation, but finding other ways to get people interested, involved in the stories, to want to support the church in the long term.
Discovering more and getting people involved are the first steps. But how do we make it all work?
It's about having a good plan, because obviously people have scarce time, they have scarce money and resources, so it's putting together a really clear plan, finding a vision that all the people involved can buy into and say, yes, this is where we want to get to, this is what we want our church to be. And sometimes a leaflet or a little display, it is a really good way of doing that. And remembering that everything that goes on in the church, in a working church, has to happen around worship and mission as well. So it's finding a solution that works for all the people that use the church at different times and in different ways. It's been a really positive process and a great example to show people that these sort of activities can have really positive outcomes from everyone who's involved, from the church itself to the partners that they work with to the people that come in. You can see the change, you can make the change, and it's a very modest investment in terms of time and money potentially that can have these really big, broader benefits.
If you'd like more information, visit our website at www.ctfc.org.uk.